Hey everyone, it's Captain C.A. Richardson with the Mirrolure Pro Tip Series, and the first class is going to be on topwaters. So let's talk a little bit about topwater. Topwater has to be one of the most exciting ways to catch fish. I don't just sort of stereotype it into a low light situation where you're only fishing topwater at dawn and dusk. I like to use topwater throughout the day if conditions are right for it. So the 4 topwater baits that we're going to talk about today are going to be the Floater Diver 7M, the Papa Mullet, which is a chug bait. Then we're going to talk about the traditional Top Dog Junior and the little bit shorter walking bait, which is the She-Pup that gives you a little bit more speed to your bait. Now that you know the 4 baits that we're going to use, let's take a look at some of the supporting casts, the equipment that's going to be necessary to make these baits look alive. Number 1 is picking the right rod action for topwater. Now, it depends on the weight of the topwater. When I'm choosing rods, I always look at the lure weight on the rod itself. In most cases, a 1/4 to 3/4 lure weight rod is going to be excellent for topwater. I want a medium action rod, but I want the tip to be fast. So I want to be able to deliver a long, smooth cast, but I want it to be effortless when I work the bait. So I want a nice rod, probably 7 foot or maybe even shorter in some cases. Now, if you're a spinning rod person, because we're going to use a casting rod for these demonstrations, you're still going to want to use a shorter rod. Anything from 6'10" to 7'2" is going to be ideal. But remember, the shorter the rod and the lighter the gear, the less fatiguing it is on you. So the first bait I'd like to demonstrate in this Mirrolure tip is going to be the Top Dog Junior. It's one of the most popular surface walkers in our lineup. It's 4 inches long, it weighs 3/4 of an ounce, and it's got a single low frequency knock in it. It is absolutely an awesome bait to throw anywhere from 1 foot to 4 feet deep. It's perfect for that. I prefer to use it in 2 to 4 feet deep, and sometimes 3 to 6 feet deep if it's really bright trying to call fish up if it's super calm. But you can use this bait whether it's a little bit breezy or slick calm, and it'll get good results. Now, I want to demonstrate what the Walk the Dog Retrieve will do for you with this bait. Understanding how the tip is working and how slowly I'm taking the slack up with the reel, you can understand exactly creating that dead time between the reel and the tip creates that nice back and forth motion with the topwater lure that drives fish wild. They hear click, clack, click, clack, pulls them up, they recognize that signature on the surface, and they strike it. So this concludes our first segment of the Mirrolure tip for surface walkers. This is the most versatile bait that you're going to use, and the Walk the Dog is the most versatile retrieve discipline, if you will, that will get you results. This bait, remember, works excellent in 2 to 4 feet of water. That's where you want to use it. Now let's move on to the Papa Mullet next, which is a chug style bait. This is a bait that I like to use in really calm water. It's 3 5/8 long and it weighs about 1/2 ounce. So it casts really well on a 7-foot medium action with a medium fast tip. Gives you plenty of action with this bait. You can work it slow. And it's meant to be an intermittent bait that you don't have to work too hard or too vigorously. So I've got 2 styles of retrieves I want to teach you with this bait. The first retrieve I want to teach you is the pop, 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 and rest. It's really simple and it gets good results. Let's show you. So when you work this bait, you're trying to give it life like it's a dying bait. You can see that there's a fish smacking it around right now. What I like to do is I like to throw it out there, let it hit the water and let the ripple ring settle out. Then I start a pop, 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 and then I let it rest right there where he's trying to eat it. Then I pick it back up, pop, 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 let it rest. That doesn't work. I start walking the dog like I do with the walking bait. That's a very, that incites a big strike after it's been dying there for a minute or two. We saw the fish come up behind the plug. You saw the pop, 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 and rest. Pop, 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 and rest. That is an absolutely unbelievably effective retrieve speed to catch speckled trout. When the fish started to lose interest, then you notice how I traditionally walk the dog back with this plug, and it walks the dog excellent, just like a standard walking bait. Now I've customized this bait with single inline hooks. I've done that because there's a lot of grass on the surface out here, and that allows me to move through it without being fouled. So that was the mindset behind that. When you're looking to make an erratic presentation, really tough to beat this bait. Awesome for speckled trout. I love this bait in 1 to 3 feet of water. It's absolutely perfect for that depth and works quite well. Now, after showing you a little bit about the traditional Top Dog Junior, how it behaves on the surface, and then the spastic behavior of the pop-pop rest of the Papa Mullet, I wanted to share with you a bait that I have a lot of confidence with. This is a floater diver bait. It's not a traditional surface walker like the rest of the lineup. You'll notice that the line tie is on the top of the head instead of the bottom of the chin on this particular bait. You'll also notice I've removed the middle hook. Now this bait is 3 5/8 inch in length, and it weighs about 3/8 of an ounce. But by removing that hook, I make it a little lighter so that I can use it more as a surface plug. The added benefit of removing the middle hook is the fact that it's more weedless when you have grass on top of the surface, and it's a little user-friendly this way. When you get a trout wrapped up in it, it's a lot easier to take them off. Now this bait is a very spastic bait. It's dive, 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 and let it bounce back to the surface. Dive, 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 let it bounce back to the surface. So it almost has a sub-walk the dog look to it, yet I allow it to fade and float back to the surface before I repeat that motion. That portion of the retrieve where it floats back to the surface, usually before you can get it to dive again, is when a sea trout will hit it. Now, if I continually move the bait without doing the dive, 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 rest, dive, 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 rest, retrieve, and I just work this bait with hard dive, 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 subwalking all the way through a zone, especially if there's a little bit of current, there's a good chance you're going to catch a snook. The Classic 7M is it's an unbelievable spastic, erratic, wounded action. And if you're looking to catch trout or snook in shallow water and they're short striking the topwater bait, this subsurface floater diver will get the job done. Now, the last bait I want to cover in this segment of the Mirrolure Pro Tips for Surface Walkers is the She-Pup. The She-Pup is a perfect little bait that has a tight little wiggle, that moves really fast, and is an ideal snook bait. I love to use this bait in 2 to 4 feet of water. But what I really like about it is it's got a higher pitch rattle. So if I'm working some noisy bait pods or something like that, it really stands out. See, the sound that you hear in the Top Dog Junior, the larger bait, is a low thud, low frequency sound. And the sound that you get out of the She-Pup is a much higher frequency sound. It's louder, tinnier, and gets noticed quick. So even if I were to stretch out and fish 3 to 5 feet of water, this would still be a good choice. But I like to use it in bait pods. And the thing I like about it the most is because it's a little bit shorter and floats a little higher than the Top Dog series, it moves faster. And when you're trying to generate or incite a strike from a snook, you need a fast moving bait. That's also why I'm going to choose a spinning rod with some braid on it to throw this She-Pup, because it's going to really make a difference on the cadence and the speed that I can work the bait. My hands are going to work a little bit faster with this bait so I can generate the speed that I want. The She-Pup is just one of those baits that drives snook crazy. It's got a high frequency rattle and it moves quickly over the top. So if you're looking for a bait that can really cover a lot of water, this is the bait. It excels again in about 2 to 4 feet of water, just like its larger sister. So I hope this first episode of the Mirrolure Pro Tip series is going to work for you. I promise you, if you follow some of the tips I gave you today, you're going to put a lot more fish in your boat.